Okay, everyone, welcome to week 2. We're going to talk about describing the visual world this week. Now, if you go into the grade book, you will notice that I have all of your week 1 graded and back to you. So make sure you take a look at your quizzes and any other assignments that are in there just to check on grades. If you have any questions about anything thus far, don't hesitate to ask. I really enjoyed reading your reflections and seeing, what you think about art at this point in your life, and how you define it. And there were some really good answers in there, some really good insights. So this is going to be a good group. I'm excited to see our discussions and reflections over the next 7 weeks. And I really enjoyed reading your feedback on Van Gogh too. I know it's such a great film, and it was interesting to see what a lot of you would ask him or say to him, and a lot of you made reflections about his mental illness, and that's kind of where you would want to engage with him or just remind him, what he was doing was really powerful. So those were really cool to read. So keep going with those, and do make sure that you are putting all of that in the right submission and opposed to the comment section. Some of you on your Artist of the Week questions were putting them in the comments, so it was showing up in this gray column on the side instead of in the submission area. Okay, let's move on into week 2. So we're going to be reading chapter 3, Style and the Formal Elements of Art, and we have a good chunky lecture this week to go along with that is going to help really build our vocabulary of art terminology and the kind of all the tools in the artist toolbox that they're using to really manipulate meaning in a work of art. So make sure you go through that. Here are your lecture slides, and there's a link to this lecture. If you don't want to just view it here in Blackboard, you can always just click here, and that will take you to the YouTube link. So make sure you download your PDF slides and that you follow along with that, because there are a few clips here and there. I will say again, this is a longer lecture this week, so make sure you set aside some time for it. And here, I know, lots of vocabulary, but that's because we're really building, again, our toolbox, our own toolbox of writing about art. And this is going to prove really helpful over the next few weeks when we really start dissecting and writing. And we're going to start practicing that this week. So your Artist of the Week is Caravaggio. And he's a really interesting character, kind of the opposite of where Van Gogh is, had his moments, but was really kind of a more gentle character, and painted these beautiful scenes of haystacks and of peasants, and really engaged in this expressionistic quality. Caravaggio, who's an earlier artist, was very violent and a very also tortured soul. So this is a really interesting guy to take a look at, but very, very brilliant artist. And so watch this documentary, and I like this one. It's a little bit melodramatic and over the top, but it's a little bit fun. So I want you to answer these questions this week. Number 1, Caravaggio is best known for his use of chiaroscuro. This is an Italian word, and we're going to go over this in lecture material. So I want you to define this term and briefly describe how this artist uses it so successfully. Number 2, list and describe 3 other elements of design you notice Caravaggio uses to create drama in his artwork. So that's, again, where this whole list is going to come into play, and we're going to start practicing writing about formal elements of design that you notice and making those observations. Number 3, do you think Caravaggio was a mad genius, or was he simply mad? How does the theme of forgiveness play into his story here? So he did a lot of Christian subject matter in his work, and yet he was this very interesting guy and was very tortured. So this is an interesting question to consider here. Okay, and this is where, and let me just show you really briefly here. If you click on these assignments, hit write submission. If you add it in the comments, it's going to show up in this gray column on the side of your submission. So just make sure you hit that button, and then your whole text editor will pop up, and that's where we want to write our answers to these questions there. Okay, so going back here, You have your reflection. This is a discussion board this week, and we're going to look at Artemisia Gentileschi. Gentileschi was a female artist, and she was working around the same time as Caravaggio, and takes some cues from his use of tenebrism and chiaroscuro. And I want you to really make sure you can understand the difference between those two, between tenebrism and chiaroscuro. One is a much more heightened sense of this use of shadow. So I want you to answer the following questions. After exploring Caravaggio's work and Gentileschi, what similarities can you see here? List and describe a minimum of 3 visual elements learned in lecture that are present in the painting. So again, we are practicing writing about these visual elements and doing some formal analysis. You can read about this work by clicking here, and this will take you to an article from the Art Institute of Chicago, and it will give you just a quick little description of this painting and the story that's going on here. And then I want you to consider, how does Gentileschi use visual elements to help tell this story? This is the story of Judith and Holofernes. And it's interesting because, if you looked up Caravaggio's version of this painting, it's quite different. So I want you to really consider her role as a female artist and the visual tools she uses to tell this story in a very specific way. So because this is a discussion board, make sure you're commenting on at least 2 of your peers' posts. Do you agree with their analysis? Do you not? Is there something interesting they had to say? So we're engaging here in these discussion boards. Okay, we have a deconstructions project this week. Busy week, week 2. So this is done as a PowerPoint presentation. This is kind of your first create project that we're doing. And you're going to select 5 works of art using the resources below. So I've given you some places to pull artwork from. So this is MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art. The Met is the Metropolitan Museum of Art. The Getty is the Getty Museum here in LA, or there in LA. I'm in Tennessee. The Google Cultural Institute, their art project is a good resource, very vast database. And SIVA.org is the Christians in the Visual Arts. And this will give you some really interesting contemporary Christian artists to pull from. So you need to find an image in each of these mediums. You need to find a drawing, a painting, a photograph, a sculpture, and some kind of graphic arts or graffiti type work. So be sure you cite each image appropriately. I want to see the artist's name, the title of the work in italics, the date it was created, the medium, which the medium would be oil on canvas, bronze sculpture, spray paint on wall, daguerreotype, whatever, if it's a photograph, and the source. The source is the full web address where the image was found. So 2 of these images that you select should be either from a Christian artist or should contain Christian themes. So again, if you go to siva.org, that would be a good resource there. Of course, if you're looking at work from the Gothic era, the Renaissance era, if you're looking at Caravaggio's work, you're going to see a lot of Christian themes there as well. So it doesn't necessarily have to be from SIVA. But what you're going to do with each of these 5 images is, in list format, you're going to make 7 observations for each image that exemplify various principles and elements of design. Again, that's where this list is going to really become helpful to you. Okay, where are we? You should cite any vocabulary terms that you can find. So again, vocabulary from lecture. Genres and art movements it may belong to. So is this from the, again, the Gothic era? Is it from the abstract expressionists in the 1940s and 50s? So it may require you to do a small amount of reading on these works of art. But overall, we want to do mostly, just visual analysis and look, use the tools we've learned in lecture this week to analyze. So you may want to look at specific media, the color harmony that's going on. Make your identifications concise and in list format, but be sure you consider not just what, but how and why the element is used. So for example, if you are going to say complementary color scheme, then I would hope that you would list what those complementary colors are so that I know that you really know what complementary colors are. Or if you were going to talk about Kinetic art, you might describe briefly how this is kinetic, how it moves. If it's going to be, if you just write the word shadow, that doesn't really tell me a lot. I want you to tell me very briefly how shadows are used. So just make sure that you are telling me how and why here, how and why these are being used. You may attach either a PowerPoint file or you can export that to a PDF for this assignment. So get going on this. Don't save it till the last minute, but I would, even if you just did one image a day in over 5 days, that would kind of break it up into bite-sized pieces here. But again, this is about practicing. We're going to be writing formal analysis papers next week, I believe it is, and this is going to help you start to just take a look at how we use these types of terms, and it will help me kind of guide you in the right direction as well. And then we've got our quiz, so a lot going on. You can use, again, these are open note, open book, and use that as you will. You have one attempt to take the quiz, so they're not timed, but you have to complete it in one session. So we've got our quiz, we have our deconstructions, we have a discussion board, and we have our questions on Caravaggio, and we've got lots of lecture material. So very busy week, but I do this because I want you to really get that background information down so that we feel much more prepared going into the next several weeks. So this is the week to really buckle down and get that stuff done. And have a great week, and don't hesitate to ask me if you have any questions at all.